Are you into sales? 1 in 9 people are in traditional sales. However, 8 out of 9 people still use about half their time trying to influence, convince others. If that's you, there's books for you. Hi BookTube, Chris here, I'm a doctor. I'm going to summarise this book. The workplace itself has changed significantly. And you could divide workforce transformation into 3 categories: entrepreneurship, elasticity, and EdMed. Entrepreneurship, the very technologies that we thought would obliterate salespeople have actually lowered the cost to entry. Now everybody's a potential seller. If you want to buy anything from Amazon, please use my referral link below and I may get a tiny commission. Elasticity is about how we and ourselves are working differently. Now, if you're working in a large organization, what you're often doing is many different things. And we're finding that our skills in the job must now stretch across so many different boundaries that some of these will involve traditional sales and of course a lot of non-selling. EdMed, that would include any medical field such as nursing, along with education. And if you think about it critically, a teacher wants to get their students to actually do something, to change what they're doing so that they actually will then learn. Equally, doctors, nurses want patients to take treatments. So this is all about sales. Sales is certainly no longer about deception. It's all about fairness, transparency, because that's the only viable path, because there's an abundance of free information out there. So if you're trying to deceive somebody, you won't get very far. There's this shift in sales from the ABC of always be closing to the ABC of attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. Attunement is bringing oneself into harmony with that individual or group and their particular context. Buoyancy is a quality that combines the grittiness of spirit and a sunniness of outlook. In any effort to move others, we must actually sustain positivity in ourselves and also believe in what we're saying. Clarity is making sense of murky situations. And what matters more today is actually problem finding. One of the most effective ways of actually moving others is to uncover a challenge that they may have and then craft this and give them a particular solution. That way you can move others. It's worth for a moment just asking yourself 2 questions. One, if you're selling, is it something that if the person agrees to buy, will it improve their life? And 2, when the interaction is over, will the world actually be a better place? If the answer to either of those questions is no, you're doing something wrong. Of course, everybody still needs to do a pitch. You couldn't have a sales book without elevator pitches. However, the fact is that now everybody is so busy, particularly looking on their phones. If you're stuck in an elevator with somebody, chances are they're not giving you the undivided attention from a traditional elevator pitch. They'll be watching my YouTube channel or other things, but hopefully the former. So what you've then got to do is make your pitch even shorter. It could be about just 1 word or a Twitter pitch, for example. Ideally, you would practice your pitches to make them short, sweet. You could have rhyme in this. Or another exercise that you may want to do is look at your emails, and you can look at the subject line and think, the last 20 emails I've sent, are the subject lines actually interesting? Would they make you as a person want to open that? So the principles are to make it personal and purposeful. If you can find uncommon commonalities, that's a great way of building rapport. In meetings, I love this concept that Amazon have, and it's having an empty chair. That actually represents the customer. So that in a meeting, you're planning things and you're always thinking, what is the service user's viewpoint here? This mentions the 3-to-1 ratio of positivity to negativity. Sure, you want to know more about that? Check out this video I've done before on positivity, which summarizes the book that they reference here. So when something bad occurs, ask yourself in an intelligent way how to overcome this. Really, I've got 3 questions for you, and you want to answer no to. Firstly, is this permanent? A bad response would be yes, I've completely lost my skill at moving others. A better response would just be saying, I hadn't had enough sleep that day, I'll do better next time. Secondly, is it pervasive? A bad response would be everybody in the industry is now impossible to deal with, rather than that particularly individual was a challenge in so-and-so. Thirdly, is this personal? A bad response would be, yes, the reason he didn't buy is that I messed up my presentation. A better response would be to simply say, I could have done better, but the real reason they didn't buy was because they weren't interested at that time. So the more you can explain a bad thing away as being temporary, specific and external, the more likely you will be to persist in the face of adversity. Because ultimately, in any sales, you're going to face adversity and rejection. But you need to also remember the power of influence, and if you can remind somebody for the reason for a rule, it may actually trigger empathy and potentially compliance on their part. You'll know what a radiologist is. This is a specialised doctor who looks at scans all the time looking for a diagnosis. Now the thing is, it's not very personal because you're just at a computer seeing something. And one Israeli radiologist realised that he had a technique to look at things. He thought, is this the scan? If this was my father's scan, how deeply would I look at this? And okay, you may not be a radiologist, but this technique can be applied to move in others. Simply, what you have to do is think with every encounter, imagine that person is a relative of yours, such as your grandmother. That's an ultimate way to build rapport and be personal, removing that cloak of anonymity and replacing it with personal connection. And then you're more likely to genuinely want to serve, which over the long haul will really help. Better yet, just treat everybody as if they're your grandmother and they've got 80,000 Twitter followers. So the first is it permanent? A bad response would be to catastrophize. This is really bad, I've completely lost my skill at moving others. Instead of saying a better response, it was just a bad day, I didn't have enough sleep. The second thing is this. And you could divide workplace transformation into three things. And you could divide workplace transformation into three categories: entrepreneurship, elasticity, and EdMed. Entrepreneurship, you'd have thought... And you could divide the changes in workplace to three different categories. And you could divide There's this shift from traditional sales talk, ABC, always be closing, to in fact attunement, buoyancy and clarity. Now attunement is bringing oneself into harmony, into the groups of others and their particular context. Buoyancy, a quality that combines grittiness and spirit and actually removing any negative outlook. Because in an effort to move others, we must sustain. For example, if you had a sign saying pick up your dog poo, or pick up your dog poo, children actually play in this field, the latter may help them a bit more. Better yet, just treat everybody as if they're your grandmother and they've got 80,000 Twitter followers. I'll see you next time. That'll do.